and welcome to another episode, probably lost to time, of the Comics Brew and Shoot podcast. I can't believe it took me a second to remember the name of our own podcast.
It's been a long time.
It has been a while. So today, for the episode that won't go up anytime soon,
It'll be up soon. The day that we're recording this is February 8th. And it'll be up by February 13th.
Glad you didn't say the 14th, because then we knew what Tom was doing that day. But,
yeah, getting some Marquettis.
Ooh, fuck. But,
I mean, it's like, what? Oh!
Fred, my Valentine's Day date.
This is the first I'm hearing.
My Valentine's Day date, Fred.
Ooh, I have a date. But yeah, today we are doing Batman, Whatever Happened to the Caped Crusader, written by author extraordinaire Neil Gaiman. I'm a huge fan of most of his works, because I haven't read all of his works. And with art by Andy Kubert of the esteemed Kubert family.
Like the game Kubert?
No.
No.
Like the school?
Like the school. Founded by him, his dad, and his brother. I believe this is also the same Kubert that drew Batman vs. Predator.
Oh, no.
Neat.
It's a great story. So is this.
Better than this one.
I liked this one.
Fred's like, so is this? I'm like, oh, I don't know. So
This is one book. We all recently read it, so no one in our group chat decided to
talk about it.
talk about it.
To preface this one, when Fred explained it to me, I was like, that sounds really interesting. And then the read wasn't as interesting to me.
You know what it reminded me a lot of? Marvel is just recently, I think this is their second time doing it. I think they did it once in the past as well, put out a wave of the End books.
Oh yeah, they did it a while ago.
Which, yeah.
Those were awful.
So, from what I read of this year's, the only one that I've liked is Doctor Strange. All of the others sounded pretty terrible, but the Strange one was pretty cool.
All the other ones were awful.
I've heard good things about the Hulk one from the old wave.
Probably because nobody ever knows what to do with the Hulk, except for apparently Scott Snyder, who wants to do a Hulk story if he ever goes to Marvel, and Al Ewing, who's currently doing The Immortal.
Well, this one feels almost like a precursor to Immortal in a lot of ways, where it's like Banner with the Hulk refusing to let him die and the last being on Earth. But it just, conceptually, that's what this story reminded me of, was the End stories that Marvel does.
Well, this is, they had done one for Superman, called Whatever Happened to the Man of Steel.
And that was Alan Moore, it said in the intro, right?
Yeah. Which was supposed to bridge the gap between Crisis on Infinite Earths and the post-Crisis continuity of Superman. Uh-huh. And then this was right before, I want to say New 52, I think.
So is that New 52 Bruce being born at the end?
I think so.
Okay. I didn't realize that this was even tied down to a specific continuity like that.
Yeah, it is. I believe this might actually take over from Scott Snyder's Black Mirror run.
Is that what came after Court of Owls?
It's what came before Court of Owls.
Before Court of Owls.
So
that's right, because Court of Owls was post New 52. That was their other...
It was the first...
Oh, that was 52.
So this would have been, the book that came... Snyder would not have written these issues. They gave it to Gaiman, and then Snyder had Court of Owls when it came back.
Gotcha. Okay, that's an interesting way of bridging that, then.
This was just supposed to be, a couple filler issues, kind of ending one continuity. But, the way that Gaiman ends it's kind of cool because it opens up the start of the next continuity.
And now we know that Dr. Manhattan created the New 52.
Apparently, Dr. Manhattan created everything.
And now he's Wally West.
No, now Wally West is Dr. Manhattan.
What's
now
the
Watchmen has stepped too far into everything, everybody was afraid
Absolutely.
it was going to.
It's pretty terrible, actually.
Yeah, it's almost like Moore was right.
Don't touch it. Except Damon Lindelof on HBO.
Like I said, Moore was right.
Except Damon Lindelof on HBO.
But yeah, so this book opens up with an omniscient narrator and in the city of Gotham. And this book I really enjoyed because of all the references in it. Like the fact that on the first page there's a, rereading it, kind of a provocative ad for a typewriter. It's kind of setting it in a time period. It's kind of the old animated series-esque look of a modern city with the Zeppelins flying over with spotlights. And it's an homage to Bill Finger, the guy who helped create Batman. Bob Kane gets all the credit for 100 years.
Yep.
And then finally Bill Finger gets some credit. And it turns out he's the guy that actually made Batman cool. If they went with Bob Kane's design, he would have been like a Zorro Red Scarlet Pimpernel-esque character with like a vague bat mask.
Oh, I've seen
and
that.
like no Batcave, no Batmobile, like nothing to that effect. I think even Finger came up with like the idea for the Joker.
Shitty Batman.
Yeah, the shit Batman we could have had. So there's a typewriter and it says don't type it, finger it, which
Ew.
solid. But then it goes into Crime Alley. Intro, Catwoman.
In her Catmobile.
In her Catmobile.
So I just want to this definitely dives into the realm of like '66 Batman.
Oh,
and the animated series with like everyone's cars being super stylized.
Well, it dives into every continuity of Batman.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
And this poor guy is just trying to make money.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, "I'll want your car for $5." And they're
It's also funny, like when you look back and you look at the denominations he's asking for. He's like a quarter, and you're like, a quarter? What a steep price to ask for in like the 1950s or like 1940s. Today, watching your car for a quarter means like absolutely nothing.
Get a gumball.
You watch a couple of cars and you can maybe afford a candy bar.
You know,
not before the taxes come in though.
Not before
gumballs have probably done the best as prices keep inflating.
Yeah, they're still a quarter.
They're still a quarter. I mean, it's probably still the same
gumballs.
gumballs.
It's the same gumballs in there.
But
that's why they all taste like garbage.
I'll never forget the
Not
time
inaccurate.
I was at the Warwick Mall and they had the gumball stand near the
Oh my god!
near the food court.
Oh,
And
the big one with the
Yeah.
tube? Oh,
and I was like a kid and I was like going over and just as I was putting my quarter in, like a cockroach climbed into view and then back into it and I was just like, I don't want gum anymore.
gross.
Yeah, it was like, dude, I don't think I've ever gotten gum from a gumball machine since.
And
Like,
I think
it skeeved me out to the point.
I
where,
keep
like,
getting one outside of the Cinema World in Lincoln.
I think that's one of the reasons I also like never chew gum. Is like I'm kind of grossed out by everything about gum.
Understandable.
So Catwoman gets her car washed.
So, question, that like big like cat like mascot looking mask that she has on, is that from like a particular continuity?
That's from the original.
I
like-
figured it had to be like a super retro like debut appearance thing or something, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, but it's cool because she gets the cats to watch her car for her.
Yep.
She goes into the bar. The bar is watched by an older gentleman named Joe.
Of course,
Joe Mama?
Chill.
Joe Chill,
Oh.
the man who famously killed the Waynes.
He wanted some pearls, you know.
Yeah, which is
He killed Martha.
Yeah, he kills Martha. And it's funny because some people say that Joe Chill kind of looks like Andy Kubert's dad, a little bit. So like, great way to memorialize your dad in the book. Make him the guy that killed Batman's parents.
Well, yeah, I mean,
So we have to think
that makes him
Yeah.
responsible for creating Batman.
Just like he made it look like his dad, you know?
Yeah.
And it's a weird thing because they're both responsible for Batman.
They are. So she goes in the back room of the bar, and there's an open coffin. There's two groups of seats. And Alfred's at the door greeting everybody, and he's like, hey, you're on this side, you're on that side. And in the coffin is Batman, and the omniscient narrator turns out to be Batman going, what the fuck is this? I'm still alive. And there's another voice that keeps talking to him. Then Two-Face shows up with his half-and-half car. Talking
that car was actually really cool.
Joker's, well, I'm not to spoil the next person who shows up, but Joker's car is definitely from something, and I think it's from the animated series.
It might be.
Because it's just like his head stretched to the proportions of a car, and it's horrifying.
But then
I think that is the animated series.
But then Jim Gordon and Barbara show up, and Barbara's still in the wheelchair, implying Oracle and the Killing Joke in this universe. The Riddler shows up and talks to Catwoman, but Catwoman doesn't recognize Riddler, which kind of even more cements that like something's off with this. Then the Joker.
It's me, Edward Nigma.
What does he refer to himself? Eddie Enigma. Yeah, that's right.
Eddie Nigma.
Because there was another guy that was the Riddler at one point by a different name.
Mr. Reese.
And then the Joker shows up. What?
Like, I'm throwing out comedy
Oh,
here.
that took me way too long to get.
Mr. Reese?
Yeah,
That's
that
the
took
guy's
me way
name in The
too
Dark
long.
Knight who's trying to extort Batman for money. His name is Mr. Reese.
Did not know that.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Then the Joker shows up, and the kid's like, if I watch your car, like, you're going to kill me anyways. And the Joker's like, why would I kill you? There's no humor in that. And eventually the kid does end up dead at the end of it.
Does he?
Yeah.
I guess I missed that.
It's like a small little thing in the corner. But then a whole bunch of other characters walk in, like Ra's al Ghul, Damian Wayne, Raish's grandson. Bunch of other characters just start showing up. And it's funny because every time you see these characters, they look a little different. Like, you actually get...
That was one of my favorite details. Every time we saw the coffin, just seeing a different Batsuit in there.
And the characters in the crowd change because there's Renee Montoya, who at that point in time was currently the Question. And the Joker in the crowd, when he shows up, he's like a weird, old-school-looking Joker.
Yeah.
But then when he finally sits down, he's the animated series Joker.
Yeah.
With the pointed face and Harley, and she even calls him Puddin'. Dick Grayson kind of like presents over the body, and he's like, hey, anybody that wants to talk, come on up. And the first story is Catwoman's story, which is an ongoing debate still in the comics, even in their like continuity, where like, where did we first meet? When you were stealing diamonds or like on a boat somewhere? Because like later on, he meets her like on a boat where she's stealing people from rich people. They say she's stealing diamonds in this one. There's the year one backstory for Catwoman where she's a prostitute that helps stab Batman and then becomes Catwoman, which they had to change when they put out a Catwoman book a couple years later. They were like, she was only pretending to be a prostitute, she never slept with anybody, because now she's a main character. But in this one, they kind of have a thing back and forth with each other. She evolves into the later Catwoman, who kind of makes an appearance in the 66 show with like the little cat ears and the cape. And then they have a thing, but Batman doesn't agree with her methods, so he's like, bye. He keeps fighting crime. She opens up a
Pet shop.
a pet store or a groomer's. It's a little bit of both. And then one
She
night,
breeds cats. And...
yeah, one night Batman shows up and he's like, I'm dying, but I knew you were in the area. Can you help me? She's like, yeah, sure, I'll totally help you. And then leaves him to die on her couch. And she goes, and
As
that's,
one does.
And she goes, that's how I killed Batman. And then she sits down, crowd silent, and then Alfred stands up. And this is probably one of my favorite parts of the book.
So what is this particular continuity? Because I'd never heard of that before.
It's just one they make up.
Oh, so this one isn't a reference to anything.
I
Okay.
don't think so. But in this one, Alfred sets up the rogues gallery for Batman out of an old acting troupe. Because the story's always been Alfred was an actor.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, it's Alfred was an actor, but also like in the British military, which is why he can perform first aid. But his dad was a manservant to the Waynes. Then his dad dies, so he's like, well, I guess for some reason I'm contractually obligated to like serve this family.
I was born into
Yeah.
slavery, so...
I was just wasting my time as an actor waiting to buttle for people.
Yep.
So he goes, he starts making Batman, but only as a way to keep Bruce like happy, like he was as a child. So he gets his old acting buddies to play these different villains. Like, what was it? Riddler. I was trying to find the guy's name, because that's, like, one of the guys. Oh, it's still Eddie, okay. But he makes all these different villains, and then he's like, but there's no, like, arch enemy for Batman. So Alfred becomes the Joker. And, like, he creates all these schemes for Batman, and then one night Batman turns around and is like, hey, Alfred, I totally know it's you.
Well, he doesn't go,
Well,
I totally know.
no,
He finds out.
he
Because
fi-
Alfred
well,
leaves his
he-
makeup out.
Yeah, he leaves out his makeup. He's like, you're the Joker. And then Alfred kind of lets him know everything that's going on. And then the bat signal comes on, and Alfred's like, I didn't ask for this. And Batman's like, well, people out there are expecting me to show up. So he goes out as Batman. And the guy who was supposed to be the Riddler snapped, and now thinks he actually is the Riddler, shoots and kills Batman, and then snaps back out of it and goes, what did I do? And Alfred's like, in allowing him to continue this fantasy, I killed Batman because I made him think he was who he was.
I remember when this book came out, I remember it like making waves on like the more casual, not involved readers who were like, "Oh my God, Alfred was the Joker the whole time," and like people losing their minds about it. And then it, like reading this, I was like, "Oh, this is that story everyone flipped out about."
Where that's clearly not the...
Yeah, it's an Elseworld.
Like,
it's an Elseworld.
Get
Kinda.
that... maybe thinking that after the first issue and waiting a month for the second, maybe, but...
Well, you wouldn't have to wait a month because it's in two different books. It's in Batman and it's in Detective.
Oh, okay.
It's the last issue of each book.
Gotcha. Okay, I didn't realize that was
Yeah,
the
because I was going to say, that's where that issue ends, and then it goes into Detective 853.
Okay, so these would have been released essentially the same time, maybe like in the same month, maybe
Yeah,
not the same exact
maybe
day,
a
but
week or two
definitely in
apart.
the same month.
And then it continues through, and you see different characters coming up to give their eulogies for how they killed Batman. You have Jim Gordon standing over the Frank Miller Dark Knight Batman. Poison Ivy, Azrael comes up at one point. There's Batgirl, but not the Barbara Gordon Batgirl, but Batman and Huntress's daughter Batgirl. And that's from another universe that happened, because everything pre-Crisis on Infinite Earths was just these stories that writers wanted to write. And then they went, oh, hey, we want to make one universe out of it. So they said there were multiverses, or like Grant Morrison even goes, all these different universes Batman imagined were him on psychotropic drugs, like living out different fantasies to prepare himself for stuff. And then there's a bomb that they can't get rid of. So Batman jumps into the Gotham River to like snuff out the bomb, which I think is a reference to the 66 movie, where some days you just can't get rid of a bomb.
Yep.
Which is also what I think the end of The Dark Knight Rises is. Like
a reference to? Like the whole...
The nuke, where he flies it out.
Which, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I want to play Some Days You Just Can't Get Rid of a Bomb as he's flying away. The Mad Hatter...
The Bat.
I love the fact that they like let Mad Hatter have a line saying that like he killed Batman.
That button
I
that
like
he
Mad
wore.
Hatter.
No, I like.
Did you guys notice his button?
No.
Hats don't kill people. People in hats kill people. Nice. I like how it switches sides too. Like there's clearly not that other button on there.
Yep.
The next one where the Joker admits to killing Batman is cool. Because it's just the killing joke. And that's a thing that Kubert says he does throughout the book. He emulates other artists' art styles.
Yep.
But not as they would draw, but as if they were trying to draw in his style.
That's cool.
So that way it's this weird, like, uncanny valley of who is actually drawing what and who's trying to be who. But, like, it's the Killing Joker. It's his Robin, but it's kind of more of a, kind of looks like John Romita style.
Yep.
It's kind of the Burt Ward-esque Robin, too.
That's what I thought when I saw that immediately.
Clayface shows up.
Looking very animated series.
Bullock, very animated series as well. Ra's al Ghul shows up, but as he is in that current run, written by Morrison, drawn by Kubert.
So not Liam Neeson.
Not Liam Neeson. And then that talks about the time that he fought in the desert and banged Talia al Ghul, thus creating Damien. But instead of like Talia giving him the antidote to a poison, he gets stung by a scorpion and dies.
Yes.
Overnight.
Yep.
Superman shows up and is like, oh hey, all the villains in Gotham were like freaking the fuck out, and like I offered to help, and Batman was like, nah, I got this by myself, and dies like trying to save the whole city by himself. And then a door opens in the back.
I thought that was a really nice use of Superman in this, actually.
Yeah. And the fact he shows up is cool.
Yeah. I wasn't expecting that at all when I opened the book.
I don't remember if Batman shows up in the Superman one at all. I don't think he does.
I'd be curious to read that just because it's more. And...
Yeah. Moore's better Superman book would be for The Man Who Has Everything, which is, they actually made a really good episode of the Justice League animated series out of it.
Did they? So I've probably seen it then.
Probably.
Was it in early Justice League, or was it after it became Unlimited?
Early Justice League.
Because I didn't watch a ton of Unlimited, but when it was like just the core 7 members, I probably saw every episode of that.
It would have just been the core members because it only requires Batman and Wonder Woman aside from Superman. And then a door appears in the back of the room, and Batman goes through the door, and that's when you finally get to see like
Martha.
No, you get to see Batman. Like you haven't really seen him this whole time. You've seen other people's impressions of Batman.
No, you've seen his corpse.
You've seen his corpse.
Lots of different Bat corpses.
Yes, but this is the Batman from the run.
Yep. From the run that this is finishing, not from the run it's leading into.
Yeah, and that's when you finally get to see who
Martha.
The other narrator is, who is his mother.
Martha.
The only thing Tom knows about Batman is that his mother's name is Martha.
I know a fair amount of Batman, and I haven't seen any of the Snyder Batman stuff. Zack Snyder, that means.
Should be fucking lucky.
Yeah. So then she's talking about the fact that like there's only 2 like certainties in the world, that he will be Batman and that he will die as Batman. And it shows a whole bunch of like other scenarios in which he would die. I feel like the giant robot he's fighting is actually from a Marvel crossover. But like you see the year 1 scene where he saves the cat. There's the Arkham Asylum book written by Morrison. There's him getting his back broken by Bane. It goes all throughout, like, seminal runs in Batman, leading up to the fact that, like, Martha is saying that, like, there's nothing that you get out of being Batman except death and, like, 8 years of being happy with living with your father and I. And then you get to see a little bit of him, like, as a child, and then you get to see Joe Chill, still haunted by him killing the Waynes. You get to watch the death of the Waynes all over again.
Oh boy!
Oh,
My favorite thing in the world is
Excited
watching
to see
the
that
Waynes
again
die.
when Robert Pattinson's Batman.
God, you know what I can't get enough of? Watching Uncle Ben die and watching the Waynes die.
I mean, we've only seen Uncle Ben die twice.
Yeah,
We've
that's
seen the
enough.
Waynes die.
Everyone knows the story.
Yeah.
Why do they waste their time? No, like that's.
Well,
what
here's the thing. They wasted their time because it was The Amazing Spider-Man, and The Amazing Spider-Man wasn't a good movie.
Yeah, I get. It. I'm
but, like, we had to open up Batman versus Superman with Batman's origin. Like, nobody knows what the fuck it is. Oh, just so we can get a couple actors from The Walking Dead on the show, in the movie for, like, 10
wasn't
seconds.
their whole... Because, again, I haven't seen it, but wasn't the whole reason they bothered to show that because they were also doing it to set up Flashpoint?
No, the whole reason they did it was so that way Thomas Wayne would say Martha, and you know that Batman's mother's name was Martha, instead of just finding out that his mother's name was Martha, even though most people going into that movie probably knew that. And then Superman's mother's name was Martha, and it's not really a thing, it's just that these characters are from the fucking 1940s, where people named Martha was a common fucking occurrence. It'd be like now if you decided to name Batman's parents, and, like, it was, like, Kyle and Brianna, and, like, fucking the Kents were, like, Chuck and Brianna. Like, that wouldn't be that uncommon. Like, everybody knows a couple people with the same names. Honestly, he would still probably be John Kent, because John's, like, fucking an everlasting name.
Yeah, fuck you. How dare you?
Parisi. So then it kind of goes on with, like, the theme of Batman being forever, which is a thing that Morrison really sets up. And then it's funny because Batman saying goodbye to, like, this life is him repeating a book he loves as a child, which was Goodnight Moon. But it's Goodnight Bat.
Yeah.
And it says, but it really goes over, like, the important things in, like, Batman's reality. So, like, the Batcave. The
Reality, plural.
Yeah, Wayne Manor. Like, all throughout time, because it pretty much says that every version of Batman ever has been on a continuous time stream. And that he just restarts when he dies.
I'm guessing, like, it's looking really narrow view down at Batman, but I'm guessing this is also a sort of loose explanation for the kind of cycle of DC universes as well, right?
Kind of, but it more so, like, just says, like, hey, anything you like about Batman matters.
Right, because,
which is nice.
And that's the one thing that I do like a lot about DC, where Marvel's comics, they have, like, a lot of great runs, but it always feels like every 3 months all of those runs are building towards event. Whereas DC seems to go the opposite direction, where it's less event-focused, and you get a lot more, like, standalone one-offs.
Now DC's doing a lot more in terms of, like, crises and, like, flashpoints and, like,
and the Watchmen stuff that's
Crisis
really
on Infinite Flashpoints.
Yeah. And the Watchmen stuff.
That's next.
Featuring the Watchmen.
Remember this. Crisis on Infinite Flashpoint.
Like,
featuring the Watchmen.
So
within the next 5 years, it'll be a DC event. And I'm going to use this podcast, and I'm going to sue the pants off DC.
So I have also with me today Spider-Man Life Story, which I finished reading last night. It takes the idea that Marvel has that, oh, hey, we can't show that our characters age. And I was talking to John about this earlier. So, like, Frank Castle, for example, when he first came out, was a Vietnam soldier. Then later on, they're like, oh, hey, he was actually in Afghanistan. And, like, they try to make it so that way they never... like, Marvel's never reset their continuity before. They change stuff, and it's really bullshit, but they've never reset it. So,
well,
like,
Frank aged a lot to the point where he got to become Cosmic Ghost Rider.
but that's in the same continuity, but in the future.
No, I know, I'm just saying. He aged into the future.
Yeah, but that was intentional, and that was not supposed to be as big a thing as it was. But in DC, they don't do that. They reset it all the time.
Yeah.
But they try to have their cake and eat it too, where they're like, well, these stories don't matter. But, like, a lot of fans are complaining that we said they don't matter, so we'll bring them back in like they do matter. Like the whole Wally thing in Rebirth. Like, a lot of fans missed Wally West because he was the Flash for forever. And now we brought him back, and then Heroes in Crisis happened where they made him a villain, and then everybody's kind of pissed about that, so they're trying to like unvilify him now
by turning him into Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah. But this Batman book kind of does it the right way, where they're like, hey, everything you like matters.
They just don't all matter at the same time in
yeah.
the same continuity in the same way, which is a fine explanation for that for me.
Which is cool, because then you see like 90s Robin with the 66 show Batmobile. And all the important stuff that matters, and like there's a whole page full of villains, and he only says goodnight Joker, and then like goodnight everybody else.
Yeah.
Then goodnight Commissioner Gordon, goodnight Gotham City, and then it's the bat signal, which then morphs into a pair of hands delivering the next Bruce Wayne, which assumedly is the New 52 Bruce Wayne. But
yeah, see, I didn't realize that's exactly how the timing lined up when I read this. That this was just pre-New 52.
So, and then it's him being put into the arms of his mother, and that begins his limited amount of happiness that he gets as a reward for being Batman. It's less he's happy and then becomes Batman. It's more he's Batman
and then
who's
he earns
unhappy,
happiness.
who earns happiness without knowing what he did to earn it. And then there's a bunch of like backups and stuff in here that I didn't read because they all look like garbage.
I didn't really like the art style.
I told John
I tried. I think I got like a page in, and I was like, ah.
I flipped through them just to see like if they were like older books that I'd be interested in. But like there is a little, at least brief interlude with like some of Kubert's sketches and stuff for what he's allowed to do.
So I have an interesting what's it called? I have an interesting take on this book.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me, like, The Funeral is people... It's almost like people getting together to talk about their favorite run for Batman.
Which, yeah.
Because, like, everyone has it. Like, everyone's story is different.
love the Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah,
and I'm a big fan of the 90s animated
we're
series.
We're not talking about how he died. Like, in the book, they're all talking about how Batman dies. And then in real life, when people get together, they talk about, like, the version of Batman they grew up on, whether it be animated series, the Keaton movie, the Tim Burton movies, the Dark Knight, the comic books, the 66 Batman.
Some people might even say the Snyder Batman.
It's a really interesting idea that I like. I like the concept of it. It's just the read didn't really hook me as well. Like, Fred sold me on the read, and then the read did not sell me the same thing.
I had no idea what I was getting into when I opened it. Fred didn't give me any knowledge beforehand when I
didn't even give you the book.
Yeah,
no, John handed me the book last night.
But like at work, Fred was like, "Oh, it's like a great thing where like it's everyone talking about Batman and it's at his funeral." And I was like, "That's a cool idea." And then, like I said, Fred sold me a jalopy.
Well, I didn't want to tell you that like it was a whole cycle of reincarnation and stuff for like all the Batmans.
Yeah. But again, an interesting book. I didn't notice that everyone changes appearance.
Yeah, I noticed that. I didn't notice it as much until I realized it was happening in the coffin, and then I started noticing it with all of the people around him.
You guys gave me another Batman book.
Listen, it's not us. It's him. It's the kid in the orange sweater. Blame him.
Story about the sweater later after we're done recording.
Fred's like, "Oh my god, I love Batman. Just keep reading Batman." It's like, at this point, even I'm sick of Batman.
Well, I want to do the second half of Court of Owls.
Oh yeah, Fred, when's that?
Let me figure it into the docket. I'll just start canceling some Marvel books because we didn't do any Marvel for.
What Marvel books have we done, Fred?
Marvels and
wait, we did Doctor Strange, right? No.
Oh man,
Silver
I'd kill
Surfer.
to do some Doctor Strange.
Silver Surfer, but Fred hasn't read that. We haven't recorded it yet.
Yeah, we got Silver Surfer
right.
Black has to happen soon. I should have fucking brought that. I could have threw it at Fred.
It's good.
Just so we're aware, we have a DC book right now, and then we have Marvel, Vertigo, Image, Vertigo, Marvel, Image. So like this was
I like this list.
So we had one DC book this year. My bad, guys. I know we've done a lot of DC.
I feel like last year all we did was DC.
Well,
Marvel slowed down on the movies, so we're desperate.
Well, last year we pumped out like Marvel movie podcast. That was it.
Our last 3 that are uploaded were DC, if you consider Watchmen DC.
I don't.
I don't either, but DC does now.
We finally have something good.
I mean, I still think DC has a lot of really great stuff going on in the comics.
We did Watchmen, Batman, Justice League, MCU, Spider-Man, Hawkeye, Avengers, MCU, Captain Marvel, Prince of Cats, Chewing the Fat, Batman, Into the Spider-Verse. So yeah, I mean, I guess we've done some Marvel.
I think the thing
Klaus
is,
Marvel's
I want to
Batman.
start. I do want to keep doing more DC, but let's do some non-Batman DC. I want to read a good Superman book because I've never really read any Superman.
I have to get it back from my friend. I lent him to him. The Rebirth Superman was fantastic.
Who wrote that one?
I can't remember off the top of my head.
Yesterday, I was suggested.
Green Lantern.
Yes, I was looking for what it was.
I think it was the New 52 stuff you were saying.
Blackest Night.
That's zombies,
Oof.
right?
No, Blackest Night was mid-2000s. That's pre-New
that's
52.
well before New 52. Then, yeah.
That is the end of the Jeff Johns saga on Green Lantern for that time period. I gave it to a kid at work who doesn't work there anymore, and I don't want to ask him for it.
I want to read. It's a much more recent Green Lantern, and I think it's an out of continuity thing. But Grant Morrison has a recent Green Lantern.
Grant Morrison is in continuity.
Oh, that his Green Lantern is? I
Yep.
thought I heard that one was out, but I've heard
Everybody wants it to be out, but
I've heard it's very good.
No. Blackest Night is a version of Marvel Zombies if DC did it.
Okay.
I read it, but there's a lot of backstory to it because it was on the end of the last universe for DC, pre-Final Crisis. And there's a lot of bullshit involved. I read it once, but I wasn't really that well versed in comics at the time, but I might try it again and see, because I've done that a few times. Like, I've tried books that, like,
Yeah.
I was like, oh man, this sucks, and I'm like, now that I have reference for it, much better. Like, I feel like if I tried to tackle Crisis on Infinite Earths now, I'd at least have a better understanding of what was happening.
Well, I have a friend who just jumped into DC for the first time, and that's what she jumped into.
Oof.
She's loving it.
The art's great, but the guy that drew it's kind of an asshole. So.
Who did it?
Ethan Van Sciver, I believe. Possibly. And if it's true, that man is a grade A cuckbag.
I feel like I've probably read more DC than I have Marvel, but like none of it sticks.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I remember a lot of the Marvel stories. The
The
DC
DC
ones.
stuff that always interests me is more their one-off stuff.
Yeah.
They do some really great standalone, like just like a single run, few issue arc, whatever.
Yeah.
Out of continuity stuff. Like, that's some of my favorite Batman stuff, is the stuff that we've read that's out of... Except Court of Owls. Court of Owls was my favorite overall.
I feel like
and that's an in
DC
continuity.
is definitely more like... It's weird. Like, Marvel's kind of like the everyman comic.
What the fuck was that?
Your
Sorry.
Your house is haunted.
You know what? It's the guinea pigs.
I mean, after the lights
Yeah.
are...
Like, Marvel's kind of like the everyman comic, especially after the movies.
Yeah.
Where they're like, we want everybody to be... Like, because Stan Lee's philosophy was every comic is somebody's first. I feel like DC is definitely more, like, entrenched, and, like, there are a lot more, like, smaller characters that people grow attached to that, like, don't get fleshed out as often because you always have the Trinity books going out there.
Yeah.
And then, like...
Like, there's never not a Batman, Superman,
At
Wonder
least
Woman
two.
book on the shelf, yeah.
And then, like, there's, like, there's a lot of smaller characters, but, like, at Marvel, at least they get kind of, like, everybody gets their time in the sun. Like, there's the Doctor Strange book, Silver Surfer, Thor. Like, you got your mainline Avengers.
You
but-
just, mentioned my 3 favorite recent Marvel comics.
Yeah. There's Hawk and Dove. Nope, that's DC.
I tried reading Hawk and Dove, or I think it was New 52. You gave it to me.
that one was bad.
Yeah.
That was Rob Liefeld.
Yeah.
That was
Oh.
not good.
Liefeld. Everything wonderful about 90s comics.
Oh. Atrocious.
But
Especially because it's, like, female Dove, too. Not that
was
there's
it
anything...
male Dove?
It was originally guy and girl. Guy and guy.
I was like, it was originally a guy and girl. I was like,
It was originally 2 guys, then it was a guy and a girl. And then
imagine being a guy superhero named Dove.
I think... Well, the whole thing was...
I'm Hawk, and I'm Dove! And then the criminal laughs for 15 minutes.
Well, I
So
think...
it's like Robin.
Well, the
I mean,
whole
yeah,
thing
right.
was like the Warhawks and the Doves for Peace, like Democrat, Republican, back and forth.
Oh, gotcha.
Kind of like when they put Green Lantern and Green Arrow together. Green Arrow's kind of more of like a liberal character, and he's like, "Aha, we should stand for the rights of the people." Kind of like how later on they did that to Hawkeye. And then
Where is it?
you got Green Lantern, who's like a space cop, who's obviously gonna lean more towards conservative ideologies.
I'm confused. So people read this at the time and really took this as meaning that Alfred was the Joker
So,
all
I don't.
along?
When did this come out? Because I wasn't really into comics at the time.
I don't think I was really into comics. when
But
this
I
came out.
remember seeing, like, I forgot where exactly. I just remember seeing people being like, "Oh my god, Alfred's the Joker." Because I think I remember talking to somebody at work about it.
I'd watch out on the dates just because the dates on the book might be the printed date.
Yeah. I can't even find one.
Actually, just give me the issue numbers.
Issue numbers?
Yep.
Fred, you can't number my issues.
I have plenty.
Yeah, it doesn't say anywhere.
Next page.
Next page.
Next page. Just the first cover for the series.
Gotcha.
Top right.
686. But I mean, like I said, a better idea than it was executed. But that Tom said that sounds like Gaiman, Neil Gaiman.
It does.
So-
686, April 2009.
So this would have been just the year after The Dark Knight came out.
Yeah. Back when DC had the cooler logo. The star.
I miss the stars that predated that one. The circle with the stars around it. That's the DC logo that I always remember. Their current one is so boring.
This the D and the
It's
C.
just a DC in a circle.
Yeah. Which is like an old school style one.
You see, it doesn't feel old school to me. It feels like Apple style, like minimalism.
Yeah.
Sleek
But I mean, back in the
bullshit.
day, it was minimalist because you could only use so much ink.
Right, but that's not a thing, and now it's
No,
just
it's
like
not a thing.
Like it, I don't know. It's like that stripped down, void of any style that like Apple goes for with all of their technology.
I mean, like, I can see why people wouldn't like it. I feel like I like it a little more because I initially didn't read it. I was listening to another show that broke the comic down, which is why I really enjoyed it, because I liked the way they handled it. And then I read it for myself to see everything that they talked about.
So am I the only one that went in like straight, like just with? I had zero context for what this book was.
I had to tell Amanda Batman was dead to get her to read it.
Yeah, I see.
Not wrong.
I had no context. I had no clue what I was picking up when I picked this book up.
I mean, I ate a little bit, and then I was kind of, like I said.
Yeah.
I thought you told me.
I didn't tell you anything about it.
I think it was me. I think I said Batman's dead in it.
Because I
When I
continued
talked
whining
about
about that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. John said he finished it, and then you said, oh, more Batman, and then John said, but he's dead. And you're like, okay, cool.
Yes.
I feel like...
You know, that does sound familiar. I should pay attention to you guys more.
Probably.
Whatever happened to Tom Publix?
Whatever happened?
We'll make a comic.
About all the
each
different
one of us
versions of my
murdering him.
funeral.
That would actually... That would actually be like a really cool short film.
We could do one with our friend Billy, where it's all of us telling our favorite Billy stories.
But that would go forever.
It would go forever.
I don't know if I have any.
So what's next on the docket for us?
Next on
What's
the docket
next month,
for us?
Fred?
Next
month. God forbid we stray from Fred's master plan.
I'm sorry.
One and quarter.
It's only like next month, which would be, John's birthday?
Wait,
So-
isn't this... No, this is February's, this book?
This is February's.
Oh, we're not doing something for, like... Okay. So,
So next month, I didn't know if John wanted to do Winter Soldier.
Oh, that's right, yeah. I already read it. I'd have to
Yeah?
reread it. It's been a while.
It's been a while.
Which Winter Soldier is this?
The Winter Soldier.
Oh, the Burbanker. Okay, yeah, I haven't read
I'll
that.
probably
I
read
want
the
to.
book and watch the movie, just so I have an excuse to watch the movie, which I don't need an excuse to
don't.
watch that movie.
The
That's
last
my
time
favorite.
One of the last movies I watched with you was when we were hanging out with everybody, and we watched Winter Soldier.
I love Winter Soldier. Yeah. God, when he... Fool.
Oh.
That elevator fight scene, man. I feel like I could take on the world when I watch that.
So yeah, because I've never read the Burbanker run, so I'm super excited about that.
Really good. Yeah, found it online.
It's not hard.
That was it.
And then, so that's March, and then April we're doing... Fred's smiling. I'm going to guess Batman.
No.
No, it's probably something Fred wants, because it's his birthday.
What?
What would I want to read in April? That
Obituary?
that I enjoy. Only if it's mine.
We're not reading an Irish history book.
No, you're not. It's a Thor book.
Which one?
Jason Aaron, God Bomb, God Butcher.
So
Bless you.
I've read that one. That's the volumes 1 and 2, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
It's
friggin' great.
it's good. With the
I
sonorific
have
art.
those, Amanda. You can take my copies whenever.
Okay.
My copies I lent to somebody at work like 6 years ago, and I never got them back. So I
Good.
bought 1, and I got to get 2 again.
I've only read,
I'll find it online. Don't
Jason Aaron's whole 7-year run on Thor, I've only read his first 3 volumes.
John,
they're very good.
I don't know if you understand this. I need Volume 2 for my collection.
Okay.
Well, there's the whole collection coming out now. It's 2 trades in, 2 paperbacks.
I thought you were saying you need to buy 2 of them.
I need to buy Volume 2.
Okay, I thought you were like, I bought 1, now I need to buy a second one. I'm like, Frank, just relax. You don't need 2. You just get
So I lent 2 of them to somebody, 1 and 2 to somebody at work.
Mm-hmm.
Never got them back. I don't think I'll ever see them again, and I'll tell you who it is after we're done. I bought Volume 1 when I was on vacation with my mom 2 years ago now.
Oh, in Ireland?
In Ireland.
Ireland.
I found it in a bookshop in Dublin, like a comic book shop. So I bought it, and I read it on the flight home. And then I need to get Volume 2 again, but I remember what happened, so I'm not like... I was never in a big rush to get it. And then I remember Volume 3 being really disappointing, and I know it's somewhere in my house, and I don't care to go find it.
I didn't hate 3, it just wasn't as good as the God
Volume
Butcher stuff.
4 is...
And I never read 4.
Is Future King Thor throwing Mjolnir through the earth to hit Galactus, because Galactus backhanded him into the moon, and Thor goes... That was my favorite moon.
I remember you showing me that
and
page.
fucking hucks it.
There was a really brutal Thor versus Galactus panel in the most recent issue of the Donny Cates one.
Yeah, it's really out of place and didn't need to be there.
Oh, Fred. Fred can never just let something happen. He's like, oh, okay, you're gone.
No, like...
I don't want to kill myself.
They show up on this planet, and the idea was, hey, we'll get everybody off the planet, which is why they bring the Asgardian fleet, and then Galactus is like, no, I'm just going to eat the planet now. Like, totally ignoring the fact that the fleet's there. The fleet never makes an appearance. And then Thor's like, yo, Galactus, how about you don't? And Galactus goes, I can just take away your power. Doesn't. And then Thor throws Mjolnir through Galactus's kneecap. And, like, it blows out the back of his leg.
If I were trying to take down a tall person, I'd go for the kneecap.
It makes sense, but, like, the end of the first issue was, hey, we're bringing everybody so we don't have to kill, like, any innocent lives. They don't then use the Asgardian fleet, they Bifrost everybody off the planet. And then Volstagg has to do all the paperwork. And I think the bigger conversation there, which I've seen on a podcast, is writing for trades versus writing for issues. And Cates writes for trades. Which is a failing sometimes until you get the whole story arc.
Which, yeah, I wonder how Silver Surfer Black would have played out in its 5 issues month to month. But it, as a trade, like picking it up and just reading it, that is one of my favorite, like, modern comics that I've read in ages.
When you can sit there and read the whole run and get immediate gratification.
And with Surfer, it's a mini-series. Yeah. It's not, an ongoing. So when you pick up that book, you read it cover to cover, and that's the story.
The start, middle, end is there.
I mean, it does lead into, like, Silver Surfer in his new black form shows up in this Thor run, but
that's because they're letting Cates write whatever he wants, and then it'll become canon no matter what.
Yeah.
Like the Spider-Man book I just finished reading, each issue is a singular story that bleeds into the next one, but everything that happens in that issue, start, middle, end, one issue. Like, I don't mind 2-parter issues, but when you're writing a whole story arc over 5, if there's no, like, sub-arc payoffs in between, like, your overarching problem can go on, but in each issue there should be a sub-arc that then wraps up. And I don't feel like that's happening in Cates' Thor run, which is what we should do on an episode of Thor's Day.
Oh, I thought you were going to say. I thought you meant wrap it up.
What?
The podcast.
That's what I'm doing. No, that's what I'm doing. I'm saying we should do that Thor issue on an episode of Thor's Day. That way we can wrap up this episode that we didn't really talk about the Batman book that nobody really enjoyed.
I liked it. I liked this one, actually. It's not my favorite of the Batman books we've done, but I did like this Batman a lot.
The artwork in this is really nice.
Yeah, plus, I'm always, like, one of the things that's always interested me, and I think it's why I'm enjoying all of my Doctor Strange that I'm reading right now, I love all of the parallel reality stuff, and this did that in an interesting way for me.
But for now, that's the end of this episode of Comics Brew and Chew podcast. Make sure to check us out on Twitter at Brew Comics and on Instagram at our new handle.
Brew Comics. It's the same.
It is the same.
Hey!
They're all the same.
And until then, you can find us at the same bat time on the same bat YouTube channel.
That's good, Tom.